Hey everyone, a Nerd Named Mark here. Welcome on to episode 100 of a Nerd Named Mark podcast. Yay! I did it. Made it to 100. Um, so with everything going on in the world, last week was a very long work week. I put in like a 15 and a half hour day and just one day off, which was like Monday, which was when I was editing all my other stuff that went up last week. And now I'm actually recording late. It's actually like Tuesday morning, the 11th. Like I've been nonstop between all this overtime working, people at work, calling out, being sick. There's obviously there's something going around that everyone's catching, but I can't say it out loud because of algorithms and everything else. So between all that, apartment hunting, and trying to keep myself healthy and avoid, everything going on, it hasn't been easy. And I haven't had time to do a lot of stuff. In my free time, though, I have been kind of like when I do have free time, I've been editing a lot of stuff. Like I have iMovie up on the iPad, iMovie on my iPhone, editing, time lapsing some videos, this and that. And then also I have like DaVinci Resolve up on one of my monitors, editing stuff. So I'm like multitasking to just get content done, trying to stay consistent in 2022. And thanks to what I originally had planned for the video being kind of not happening now because of conflicting schedules, because I wasn't available when I originally planned everything. Um, this episode is going to be kind of like my content roadmap for 2022. That's what this podcast is going to be about. So if you're listening, welcome back. Thank you. This is my first real 2022 podcast episode because the other one I put up last week was kind of going over everything from 2021. So now we're kicking off the 2022 season. And uh I'm tired already. This year we're not even 2 weeks into the year and I'm already like just beaten down and exhausted. Like it's tough. So for those of you watching on YouTube, welcome. Thank you for watching on YouTube. Obviously, watching on YouTube isn't as easy because if you listen, you can listen in your car, audio, this and that. But watching it on YouTube, you kind of get not you get to see me, but you also get to see visually, what I'm buying, my comics, manga, games, etc. So thank you for returning to the YouTube channel. Hopefully, if you haven't already, hit that red subscribe button, and then you can see when all my other videos go live. Now that all that good stuff is out of the way, um, man, I haven't gotten any comic books, and I'm only going to briefly touch on this because I'm actually going to do a full-blown video about it because there's a lot to explain. There's a lot going on, and I've kind of been tiptoeing around my issues with comics for the last 2 years. I briefly mentioned it in the podcast, but I haven't like fully like gone in and explained my position on mainly the big two, Marvel and DC. So that's something that's going to be a full-fledged video that I've already started working on because I think my as someone who's been collecting and reading comic books for 30 years, I'm turning 36 next month. My first comic I ever got was a Spectacular Spider-Man. I was 6 years old. And then after that was a couple Fantastic Four issues. And then I got into X-Men just around the time the animated series for Spider-Man and X-Men was on Fox Kids. That's what kind of launched me into more comic book stuff. But the first comic book I ever had was a Spectacular Spider-Man. I remember buying it. That was the first comic I ever got with my own money. I bought it at like a CVS type place because they used to have the news rack, the comic rack, the spin one, and something about the cover. I still have the comic. It's one of my boxes. It was one of those anniversary ones, so it had like the lithograph card in the center, and it was like all blue, and the lithograph card was like Spider-Man crouched down doing the web thing, so that you could turn it. It caught my eye, and that was the first comic I ever bought. So, and since then, it's just been 30 years of just reading comics, finding the obscure characters that I really loved, like Green Lantern, Aquaman. Those were my top two from DC. And then from a Marvel standpoint, always loved Spider-Man. And then I was, Punisher was another big one for me because he wasn't the stereotypical comic book superhero, and that's what I liked. And it's kind of like what I like Spider-Man too, because Spider-Man the comics, yeah, Spider-Man's cool and all, but like there was so much elements of Peter Parker that I was like, I like this. Even as a kid and like going into like my youth of young preteen and then teenage years, like Spider-Man was kind of there. But I have a whole thing because I didn't get any comics this week. I haven't got any comics yet this year. And I'm not losing sleep over it. I obviously have my pull list, so I can just go get them. They have them set aside for me, and they know me, so they know I'm not like delinquent and not gonna get my comics because I've been going to the shop regularly, usually every Wednesday when comics come out. But post in current pandemic situation, I go like every other week or so. But I've been going to the shop since October of 2016, so over 5 years. They know me, and this is one of their other locations. When I lived in a different part of San Diego, I was going to the other shop since 2013. So this one company that has four locations, like not a corporate chain, mom and pop style. I've been going and getting comic books from them for, I'll say 2013. So March 2013 to now. So almost 8 years, almost 9 years. So they know me. Um, but because there's no comic books, don't worry. I've been continuing my quest of completing sets and fully reading manga, whatever, however you want to word it. And I picked up some new ones. So the first one I got was this big 50th anniversary of Kamen Rider. I'm only 74 pages into it. It's over 800 pages. It is the complete works from Shotaro Ishinomori. So this is the full Kamen Rider manga that went along with the 1971 I believe it's 71, the original Kamen Rider series. So it's a manga going over that show. It's huge. I only finished part one, and I love it. Like I'm such a huge Kamen Rider fan, and I used to read a lot of manga back in the day. Like that was like it was my downside was I always felt it was pricier than comics, but when you think about how many pages you have compared to a comic book and how each volume has multiple chapters within it, so it's almost like a trade paperback where say volume one of Mighty Morphin comes out on trade paperback. Well, that's what, 5 or 6 issues of the comics in one book. That's kind of what manga is. Instead of, buying each one of those chapters individually, you have all of them in one book. You have 5 or 6 in one book. So it's like you can kind of justify the $10 to $14 price point depending on what it is. And because Target now carries manga, the manga's $7.99. Like, that's ridiculous. So outside the Kamen Rider one, which I found at Barnes & Noble, that was a big boy. That was like $33, $32 or $34. But I did pick up, because it just released just now, this last week, the My Hero Academia Team Up Missions Volume 2. I really enjoy this because it's kind of like, there's a couple Bakugo Deku one-shots in it. And there's also kind of, each chapter's kind of like just a team up one-time story. And it's really neat. And it's, I don't know if it counts as canon to the main manga, but it's like side arcs, and I like it. I enjoy stuff like that. And then, so that's it for the manga stuff. I completed. It's already on the shelf. I completed the last 2 volumes that I needed for Ultraman, so I got 14 and 15. So the Ultraman is now current. I have not. They're not on the shelf because I have to read them, but I am current up to volume 13. But yeah, just reading a lot of manga. I can see why in the last 2 years manga sales in the US have just dwarfed and decimated the comic book industry sales. And I think one, because we're getting more, anime is getting more mainstream. This is what always happens. I mean, if you look at the last couple of years, we've had, outside of Dragon Ball, Resurrection F, Battle of Gods, Brawly, like going in theaters, we've had now 2 My Hero movies in US theaters, a Demon Slayer movie in theaters, Target carrying manga, Funimation app being, what it is, and it's really good. And then also Netflix, carrying a lot more anime now too. It makes sense that, it's more easily accessible now. and there's a quality there, which is something that I'm talking about in my whole video I'm doing, talking about why I'm not really pulling comics as much anymore, especially from Marvel and DC. And when it comes to comic books, the indie comics, like even though they're staples, they're not big like Marvel and DC, but like Dark Horse, Image, Boom Studios, a few other, ones like I mean, Archie Comics has been around forever, but Archie Comics isn't, putting out, what Marvel and DC are from a sales standpoint. But Archie is a staple. And I do enjoy my Archie Comics. I'm always been adamant that like Archie Comics is, that's that's something I keep close to the vest, That's something that's very personal to me. So I keep the Archie collection going. And yeah, if you go all the way back to 2019 in September or October, I did a whole podcast episode, which I've mentioned before, about how I found out my mom was a big nerd and how she had first print OG issues from Archie Comics from 1961 to 1963 and 64, but she didn't give me all of them. And so that's kind of cool. Something, I share with my mom. My mom likes Archie Comics. I still like Archie Comics. I get the comics and the digest. She mainly got the comics and a few of the digests when she was growing up. So it's kind of something cool that we both, share. But yeah, that's it for comics. I got a couple volumes of manga, reading up on that. I have been catching up on some of my other comics. I am going to be doing some side either Nerd and Mark reviews for the audio, but also for video. Some reviews for Donny Cates' Hulk, because there are 2 issues in on that. That's actually really good. There are some things from Marvel I'm enjoying. Miles Morales, Spider-Man, Hulk, and yeah, that's about it. So, video games. Obviously, you could, if you're watching on YouTube, I got the Switch all hooked up over here. I have been playing Pokemon Unite still. Who's surprised? Nobody. Dragonite dropped in the game. I'm enjoying Dragonite. I'm a huge Dragonite fan. I like my Dragon Boys. So, Dragonite, going through there, getting used to the playstyle, a lot of changes, because I kind of stopped playing Unite a lot, especially when, I picked up Brilliant Diamond and Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, like playing those a lot. Still chipping away at Disgaea 6 and Shin Megami Tensei Persona 3. Or not Persona, yeah, there's no Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne HD, and I'm still chipping away at all those. I took a break because I had some friends who picked up Sword and Shield, and they were trying to complete all the Pokédex stuff. So I was like, yeah, like, let me load up the game. I'll trade you some things. Let me help you out. Let me give you some OP power to your team so you can crush it, because I put over 500 hours in that game. So I completed all the dexes in both DLC, main game, then went on a shiny hunting tear. So yeah, I put a lot of time into those games. But outside of the Switch, I don't know if I talked about it yet. I finished Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm halfway through my New Game Plus. That game is still amazing. It looks beautiful. I'm kind of mad I got it physical, because playing on the Xbox on the TV is cool, but I would like to play it over here with the setup with my digital only, but that's not an option because I got it as a gift on disc, but I'm not complaining. The game, it's easily one of my top games of the year. Easily. And I talked about it on my 2021 Best of podcast episode that was out last week. Guardians of the Galaxy, pleasantly surprised. A game I didn't have any qualms to really play, because it just single player, narrative driven Guardians of the Galaxy game where you don't get to play as everyone, you only play as Star Lord. I was like, I don't like that. But I'm pleasantly surprised. I was like, I'm gonna need to stop sleeping on games without fully looking into them and just going based off face value, that like, oh no, I'm not gonna like that, because that hasn't been the case. I love that game. Like, it's so good. And then I finally started playing Life is Strange True Colors. That's a game I've been waiting to play. Finally had time to like crack that open. I started, obviously last week I was so busy I didn't really get to do anything really playing wise with it. And then the last game we've been playing, both of us, Just Dance 2022. Obviously she's playing it more than me. I danced to a couple songs. I'm not bad at dancing. Just gonna throw that out there. I'm quite graceful on my feet, so to speak. But because of how tired I've been, don't have the energy. Like after like 2 songs, I just like fell on the couch and I'm like, I'm done. I was like, just leave me behind. I can't do this anymore. I don't got the energy. I don't have the stamina. My tank's on empty. I can't do this. And she was like, dude, you just like, it was like 2 songs. Meanwhile, she's doing like the marathon mode online against other people for points. And she's like getting first and third and this and that out of like a couple hundred people. And I'm just like, good job. You did it. I can't. I'm going to go take a nap now. Those 2 songs wiped me. So, but it's a fun game. I do enjoy the Just Dance games. They are kind of like the guilty pleasure franchise that I'm like, you know what? We got it. We get it every year and, play a good amount. So you get your money's worth. Other than that, I'm trying to think of what other games I've been playing. Like, there's some on my wish list that I want to pick up. I do want to pick up Super Robot Wars 30 is on my list to pick up. There's another one that I saw someone tweet about, and then I was watching it, some videos on it, and I added that to the wish list. But I don't have time to. But it's called Project Zomboid, and it's kind of like this open world survival game, but it's not like a DayZ graphics, this and that. It's like top down, almost like a Sims start, like, but the good graphics, not like a little pixelated like 16-bit, but it looks really good. So that's on my list. Those are the 2 main ones I'm gonna be getting next, and then I do want to get. Oh, I forgot the name of it. It's a Gundam game. It's like one of the SD Gundam games. I'm gonna probably pick that up too. But those, I'm realistically not gonna get them until probably next month or once we get into the new apartment in March, because at the end of this month the new Pokemon Legends Arceus comes out, and that's my main focus, as well as Dying Light 2. So those 2 games have top priority. I don't need to add to my backlog when I have 2 big games that I really want to play coming out. So yeah, that's it for games. The main thing I want to talk about in this episode is just, like I said, the content roadmap for 2022. You know, in 2019, I had plans. I had plans on where I wanted the podcast to go, where I personally and professionally as a content creator wanted to go and transition to and kind of build up to. Then 2020 happened. And I spent a lot of 2020 not working and planning because you can't really do much. And then I was like, start in 2021. And I didn't realize 2021 was going to be the way it was for most of the year. So I was like, all right, still fine tuning everything. And so it's like when the time comes, everything will be prepared to just start creating and going. I'm tired. I need coffee. It's my day off. So the main 2 things I'm working on, and this is something I have been drastically trying to, like, one I've been working on for like, I think from not a planning phase, but like idea and planning was already done. Now just breaking down how it's going to be stylized, how it's going to be filmed, how it's going to be edited, who I would like to collaborate with for different sections on it. And then once I have it broken down, then, I've already planted the seed and reached out, but I don't have what I want them specifically to contribute yet, is the Tokusatsu documentary. And my main thing is production value. And I don't want it to be a YouTube style documentary. Okay, so there's a lot of people who do documentaries for YouTube and stuff like that. And I noticed from a Tokusatsu standpoint, a lot of stuff is video essays. Now, I'm not shitting on video essays at all. You can learn a lot from them. But I'm not going to do a documentary where basically I have Wikipedia up and I'll just read from the Wikipedia while, clips of a show are being played or still images are on the screen and I'm just voicing it over reading from Wikipedia. To me, that's not a documentary. It may be a video, and even then, I don't think it's a video essay, because by definition, an essay is something you write. If you're just pulling facts off of Wikipedia and putting them in different orders and adding like a couple sentences here and there, I mean, that's not really. I was an English major. All through high school, took AP English, this and that. Before I got into IT, my main goal was I was going to major in English, minor in business accounting, And all my electives were film study and film related stuff. That's literally how my first year of college went. It was very tiring, but that's so I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to, I didn't want to be an English teacher. I just wanted to be a writer, and I felt it would benefit me if while I was taking English courses to also take some business classes. So, and then the film classes were all the electives for the art credits. So, just in case I wanted to change my major, I had like a nice spread out, credits for different stuff that could be So if I want, like, I changed my major anyways. So I'm kind of glad I went into all these other electives. I even did some graphic design stuff in magazine. Because back then in '04, I actually had a course I was taking that was teaching me how to actually make a magazine, how to use all the programs to make the layout of a magazine for print, how you would do the different boxes, bylines, this and that, everything. So it was almost like journalism, but not the writing side of it. It was how the layouts and designing went into it. So I took a lot of stuff. That's why when I look at documentaries and I see these video essays, I'm like, they're cool, but I'm trying to word it, politely, because there are some people I know. I have friends who do video essays and this and that, and I support their content, and it's good. Me personally, video essays are boring. So it's kind of like when people make like fan films and versions of stuff. It's like, I get it, production quality is kind of a thing, but it's like, I'm not going to put something out if I don't put 110% of myself in it. Prime example, Stephen Ford. He does all these fan films for and versions of like, 007. He's doing a Ghost of Tsushima one. He's done all these videos, and the production quality is just, and you can tell the care and the effort and love and care is put into it. This documentary, that's what I want to do. So I'm trying to, find a way on how I want to edit it. So I've been doing research. I've been watching a lot of documentaries. I watch documentaries anyways, mainly murder documentaries, but I mean, that's a lot different. That's like, matter of factly and stuff like that. But this isn't going to be a history of tokusatsu. This is going to be a love letter to tokusatsu from a Western perspective. So there will be some facts in there, but a lot of it is going to be, you know, the real Western audience side of tokusatsu, not the we have Power Rangers, yay, or I go to a specific site to download it. Subtitles, whatever, Toei. Like, no, this is going to be a lot more than that. And another thing I'm doing is a docu-series, season 1 of a docu-series. It's going to be about 8 episodes. And uh, still within the tokusatsu realm, but more specific to things. And this is something where I'm probably going to have, I've already reached out. I'm going to have like 1 or 2 creators, collaborating on each episode with me. I will be doing all like the editing and stuff like that. It's just, I don't want everything to just be my voice, my face on everything, because there's so many opinions about things, and I'm not knowledgeable on everything. I will never claim to be this knowledgeable source or historian of everything. I'm slowly becoming a curator of, Kamen Rider, and also things like, I will say from an Ultraman standpoint, I've curated quite the collection of Ultraman. I have every Blu-ray and DVD that's been released since, Mill Creek started doing them in the end of 2019 into 2020. I have all the manga. I have a lot of the figures. I mean, I don't shy around the fact of my love of Ultraman, okay? So, I'm kind of becoming a curator of that and a historian of that standpoint. But my main focus with these docuseries is, I think, there's a lot of people aren't talking about a lot of things, or a lot of people aren't making content in a certain way. And it really chimes up to a lot of Toku stuff is toy reviews, reaction videos, which I'm guilty of too. Like, I will be the first one. I'm guilty of the toy reviews and reaction and unboxings, and then video essays. No one's putting the time in to really do a high quality budgeted look into all of us Western fans of tokusatsu. And I think it's a shame, because I think if you go on surface value of looking at Twitter, there's a very divisive side of the Toku Twitter. I don't take part in most of it, and I try to avoid most of it. But if someone's gonna get into tokusatsu and then they go in and look at that stuff, they're gonna be like, "Wow, what is this? What is this shit show?" Like, so my main goal is to really just like shed some light on what it really is to be a Western Toku fan. Uh, Other than that, uh, so I've been working on this podcast, not this one, but a podcast, and I hinted at it before, and I don't know what to do with the name of it. I have 11 episodes recorded. I've had 11 episodes recorded since the beginning of last year, or well, spring, like April or May. It's almost summer. I don't know what to name it because at first it was gonna be a culmination of like cryptids and like UFO stuff and mysteries, like not like true crime, but I do like true crime stuff. I listen to a lot of true crime podcasts, but I didn't know what to name it because at first it started off as like a cryptid style or a mystery style like podcast, and then I was like, well, I wouldn't mind talking about some true crime stuff here and there, or and aliens and like conspiracy theories like Mars anomaly research and stuff like that, like all the things that appeal to me because and like going to like Hollow Earth. Like I'm not a conspiracy guy. I'm not like, oh my god, the moon landing was fake. The Earth is flat. There's Hollow Earth. There's portals in Philadelphia. Like I'm not in. That's not me. I just have a curious nature, and it's almost like entertainment value. But at the same time, I'm like, wow, this actually is intriguing to read about or listen about or watch something on. But I didn't want to do a podcast for each thing. Like, okay, we're gonna have my cryptids and UFOs over here, and we're gonna have my conspiracy theories over here, and then we're gonna have true crime over here. It's like, no, I'm not doing three more different podcasts, okay? So I'm trying to figure out a name for the podcast, so that way there, and then make a logo and everything else, and then I can release season one because season one is done. It's been done for about 9 months now. So I need to think of a name and make a logo for that. I'm gonna talk to a couple of my friends who are really good at branding and see what we can come up with like together on a name because that would be nice to finally have done. And then so that's that. Like for this podcast though, I'm not worried about Nerd Name Mark podcast. Obviously, it's been we're running full steam ahead. Last year the numbers were really good. I'm hoping this year we continue the growth. Even if we stay the same, I'm not going to complain. Like, I'm completely content with, you know, the quality. Like, compared to where it was when I started. When I started, it was a really shitty, it was like an $18 mic on Amazon and a Lenovo Yoga 2 tablet, compute PC, laptop. That was it. That's all I had. Um, Then it transitioned into I bought a Yeti Snowball, and then I got the new computer set up, and then a desk. Because before I didn't even have a desk, I was literally recording, holding the microphone, and on a coffee, and I had my computer on a coffee table. Like I didn't even have a desk. So now to see where it's at now with the setup, for those of you watching YouTube, I got a nice mic, I got multiple monitors, I got a nice computer, got all my merch on display. So the last, since almost over 2.5 years, like it's been a evolution and a progress in quality. So I like my setup now. This is the setup I'm gonna have for a long time until I get like a bigger place and can set up a full studio to do all my recording and filming and work from home stuff at, and like an office setup. So until then, this is the setup I'm gonna have. So I'm content in that standpoint. I'm not content in the podcast itself. I do want to continue to grow not just the following and the listenership, but grow myself as a podcaster, grow in the quality of the show, more, just add more guests. That's the main thing. Like for this show this year, a lot of guests. I already have between now and the end of February 3 guests lined up that aren't my normal guests. Like, I have Resident Daryl on and Chris from Nightmare CV from Half Gen. Like, I have them on. They're my good friends. They are always welcome on the show. Like, I know them outside of podcasting. So, it's good to have a friend. But from a guest standpoint, I'm saying more like interviews. Like, I'm going to have a comic book writer on, possibly an artist. I got a my next guest is someone who is slowly taking over the scene from a an art and a shop standpoint. Start his own business, gonna do big things this year, and I'm happy to have him on. There's just a lot of I'm gonna be having a lot of guests, like actual guests, like interviews and this and that. And yes, I will continue to have my friends on for us to just shoot the shit, talking about like Resident Evil or comic book movies or video game. Like that's still gonna happen. So don't worry about that. That's not changing. I'm just trying to finally get the content out that I want to, that I've been kind of putting on the back burner because obviously there's no conventions. I haven't been to a convention since TwitchCon 2019. And, when I started the podcast, this and that, especially in 2020, like when I made all these connections towards the end of 2019, I was like, yeah, Comic Con, if you're going to be there, already planting the seed that, hey, if you're going to be at Comic Con, like, I'd love to sit down with you. 15, 20 minutes tops. Let's just talk. I'll bring my podcast stuff with me. We could do this. And I know we could have did remote stuff, but like everything was so hectic, and I wanted everyone to just focus on like getting their ducks in a row and being safe. That I didn't want to bother anyone to do Zoom call interviews, and yeah, so that's that. The Nerd Mark Reviews podcast, man, I gotta get back into my review stuff. Like I've been time constraints, and I haven't been watching stuff. But then when I watch stuff, it's like late at night, and it's like, oh, I'll review it tomorrow. And then it's like I get out of work, I'm like, I'll review it later on in the night, and then it's like I'm watching something, I'm like I'll do it tomorrow. So I'm gonna try not to push things back and be like, do it tomorrow. Like worst case scenario, I'll just start writing out the review and just throw it up on my computer as like a teleprompter style or footnotes and cliff notes, and then just boom, go, hit record, and just start, you know, doing my reviews. I do want to fine tune the Nerd Mark Reviews podcast. Um, Talking Toku, that's a tough subject to talk about because I kind of put the kibosh on that for now. Um, I had a co-host. Scott was my co-host, and I I just got kind of frustrated with constantly trying to batten down, recording, and I wasn't happy with the quality of it, and so that's going to be pseudo rebranded. The name's gonna stay the same, but the show itself is gonna drastically get overhauled, and yeah, so that's what's gonna be happening with that. That's gonna be a couple months away, and that's really for podcasting and content stuff. Like a lot of stuff isn't immediate in the future because of moving and everything else going on. So it's just like I try and plan ahead of time. Like my Google Docs are insane right now. I have so much shit. I if I'm at work, and I'm on my break, it's like I have Google Docs open and I'm just like, oh, let me like fine tune what this idea. Oh, I had a great idea. Let me put that in the Google Doc, and then I flesh it out later on. There's so many Google Docs in there, and also I download, like when I get on my computer, I download the documents like Word style to my computer to have hard copies of. Um, or if I don't want to go on Google Docs, I have the notepad in my phone and tablet open, and I'll just type up stuff and then import it over. Like there's a lot of stuff I want to do. It's very overly ambitious, but that's the thing. I gotta be, because I don't do resolutions every year. I don't do resolutions. I don't believe in them. I set goals and roadmaps and where I want things to be and what I want to do. Like so that's like my main thing for 2022. And then from a YouTube standpoint, for those of you watching on YouTube, hey, I didn't forget about you, YouTube. I didn't. I already tried a few videos, which I'm happy with. I'm happy with how they came out. I'm going to be doing more opinion-based videos, not just my reaction reviews and my Gunpla videos or nanoblocks and toy hauls and stuff like that. There's like I said in the beginning of the podcast, I've been collecting comics for 30 years. I have my hand in a lot of cookie jars for fandoms, and there's always some misconceptions, misinformation, and this and that about, source material and this and that. So, like, I did the whole Spider Man No Way Home and why it made so much money compared to, the MCU films that came out last year, like Shang-Chi, Eternals, Black Widow, and how, it had nothing to do with the movies being quote unquote woke. You know, I don't like the woke narrative that like people are pushing as an excuse for why movies and shows don't do well when we can literally just say they weren't good. I don't know why we can't just go out there and say, "Hey, this movie was not good because it just wasn't good. Here's why. It writing was lazy, CG was wonky, the story made no sense. Why was this film made?" But that's not an we can't say that. Like everyone has to be like, "Oh, well, it was woke and that's why it did bad." Or then from the other side of the coin, they're like, "Oh, people just don't like diversity. You're this phobic or that ism, or that ist. That's why you didn't go see it." And it's like, why do you have to label me a horrible thing because I didn't want to fucking see Eternals? I was like, one, I didn't want to go to the movie theater. Two, it's a shit movie. Like, I mean, just saying. And then like I defended why Black Widow didn't even do good. And honestly, it was poor timing of that film. That film should have had Captain Marvel's time slot, like release date. That's literally it. We waited too long for a Black Widow film. Spoiler alert, she died in Endgame. So why do I care about a Black Widow film now? You know? That's the thing. That's why it didn't. So I was like, why can't people just justifiably say why things don't work instead of having to push this weird, awkward, it's woke, blah, blah, blah. It's like, really? It is? It's it's stupid. And then another one I did was I forgot. Well, I talked about like why Morbius was pushed back. And then I did one for the MCU, which if there's ever a terminology that I just hate, and I've already had people calling me a Marvel MCU shill when honestly 75% of movies I didn't like, and some of the more popular ones I didn't like because they were just boring, you know? So I was like, but I talked about the MCU and how like that terminology is just stupid. But at the same time, it's like everyone's entitled to their opinion, and it's all about perspective. And I could see casual people who don't follow comics or only like what they like from their perspective seeing this point of view. So I kind of I don't try and play both sides of the coin. I attempt to show why you can have the perspective of both sides, but why this is what it actually is. And this is a source material that they're drawing from. Same with like Jane Foster becoming Thor. I'm like, you guys read that arc? Did you read Original Sin that led into it? Did you read Thor when she took over and what happened with Thor? Did you read War of the Realms and how Thor became back with his hammer and became Allfather and was badass and lost his arm? Like, did you guys read that? Like, am I the only one who read it? Because it was good, and I don't even like Thor. I'm not a fan of Thor. Post Original Sin, when I was reading Original Sin, I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen now, but I need to start reading Thor. Like and that's exactly what happened. Like that's what that Original Sin crossover did its job. It made me care about Thor, and I was like, all right, now I'm gonna go read Thor, and then that led into War of the Realms. So I talk about that stuff. Like, this is what I want to do with more content. I want to go through. I have this knowledge of comic books, and for the longest time, as a content creator, I've always walked on eggshells because I thought if I walk on eggshells, I can appeal to everybody. And it wasn't that I wanted to be everyone's friend. I didn't want everyone to like me. I just was thinking from the standpoint of, hey, if I can walk this eggshell, walk on eggshells, be Switzerland, be neutral on everything, then you know what? It's fine. But then I realized it's exhausting and tiring trying to bite my tongue on things and, not give my full opinion. Now, I'm not lying or anything like that. It's just I'm redacting. Things are redacted from what I want to say. Not anymore, okay? This year, it's like if I piss you off because I say something and I have an opinion, then that's on you. And also, I've talked about it in other videos. That there are ways to word your opinion. There are ways to word situations and outlooks and reviews on things without sounding and being a dick. Yeah, you can actually have a bad take on something and not be a dick. and you can have a good take on something and rebuttal someone and, convey your point properly like an adult and not be a dick. It's a lost art that a lot of people don't realize. Maybe it's because, educated, kind of smart, good with words. Unless you listen to my old podcast where I say and like a lot, but that, I learned how to edit those out. Then real quick, that was within like 4 or 5 episodes. I'm like, I know how to edit out all the ums. Yay. And yeah, so that's, the content I'm going for. Like, I'm going to be talking a lot about pop culture because someone said it, I forgot who said it. They said so many people want to do YouTube videos and write articles about pop culture, but instead they're writing about people's opinions of comics and this and that, and not actually writing about the sources. They're not writing about the comics. They're not doing videos about the movies. They're instead covering what other people have said about it. And I was like, that is smart. That is a good take. And I was like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. So my thing is, I'm going to be, starting to cover more actual comic book related stuff. So, and that's something I've wanted to do, and like, just outside of the podcast, because I don't want to sit here and do an hour long podcast talking like 10, 15 minutes on a whole bunch of different news stuff. I'd rather do that on the side and lead the podcast the way it is. But yeah, that's really all I'm going to be doing this year. That's my content. That's my goals and my roadmap for everything going on. I thank everyone who's been on the journey so far. If you're new and you're going to be coming on this journey with me, thank you for going along with this journey. I'm looking forward to everything going on in 2022. It's going to be a very exciting year, not from just a content creating, but my personal life as well. And yeah, I'm glad you guys are going to be along for the ride. If you haven't already and you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. There's a little red button over here. Hit that subscribe button. There's a little notification bell. Whenever I do any new videos, you'll know when they go live, and then you can check them out. Comment below and let me know if you're a content creator, what are your goals this year? What are you working on this year for content? I want to know, because when you comment and you say that stuff, then I can click on your name, see your channel, and see what you're working on. I like always checking it. I check out a lot more content creators than I do work on my own content, oddly enough. If you're listening to this podcast, thank you for listening. You can go to anchor.fm/ANNM podcast. A Nerd Named Mark podcast is available on all podcasting streaming platforms, on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Podcast Republic, Podbean. It's everywhere. I thank you guys. This has been episode 100 of a Nerd Named Mark podcast. And don't worry, we're going to have some bigger episodes, some more celebrations and exciting things going on. So I thank you guys for watching, and I thank you for listening. My name is Mark, and I'm a nerd.